So here we are for part 10. Part 10 of Horror Nights History, Sweet 16. Halloween Horror Night 16 in the year 2006. Now, I left off, I had begun to start speaking about Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure that year. As I pointed out, the show began not at Fright Nights, but the following year, Halloween Horror Nights 2 in 1992. And it proceeded then every damn year Halloween Horror Nights until the year 2001 in the Wild West Stunt Show Auditorium located off past the Amity Village area. Now, that had been a stunt show with all sorts of rowdy stuff going on, and they took advantage of that by having stunts happen at the show. Lots of explosions and pyrotechnics. Sometimes the whole set would fall on top of people. There was a big well in the front, and people would be thrown down the well, and the water would come splashing out, and explosions and loud noises, and the water would splash the first about 3 or 4 rows of the audience. Nowadays it's VIP seating, and if you are hoity-toity special event things, they'll bring you in ahead of everybody. You know, and I'm not even talking about the people that come in because they have express pass or because they're disabled. I'm talking about before that, they'll have these, they'll just leave this area as reserved seating for somebody, I forget who the hell they are, out of the resort guests or who they are, and you don't get to sit that seat unless it doesn't fill, and maybe they'll let you sit in it, but for the most part that's left open. Back in the day, anyone sitting there would get soaked! So now, but it wasn't any kind of special seating. It was like people sat there if they wanted to get their asses wet, and they would. They'd be soaked, the water comes splashing out. Quite different. 2002, 2003, even 2004, because again they didn't use this part of Universal Studios Florida. They only used the other part by New York. They didn't extend this far out. So the show in 04 as in 05, during that entire run of Iron's Adventure, was located in Toon Lagoon, as I mentioned before. So 2006 was not only the homecoming for the 4 icons and everything with the Sweet 16, but also was the Bill and Ted show coming back to the stage where it had been played for all those years before. And when it did, there was a big change because it wasn't the Wild West stage anymore. It was now Fear Factor Live. Yes. Okay. So anyway, and while this was so yeah, I'm doing this while I'm eating pizza. I just thought it was a Bill and Ted thing to do. I told you in the last video the pizza was coming. Okay. Well, dude. So they come back and they look around and realize things have changed. With Fear Factor, I'm not even sure Fear Factor was on the air anymore by 2006. It was still Fear Factor Auditorium. They were back to Universal Studios, and that is what was used in the show. See, Lex Luthor, you know, Lex Luthor, yeah, bald, evil, anti-Superman villain, basically, is the main villain. At that time, 2006, as you may recall, Superman returned. Superman returns, and the guy who was a one-shot Superman, Brandon Routh or Ruth or whatever, who's really, really, really good-looking, but his acting capability is nowhere near that of Christopher Reeve. And recently, though, he spent a pretty decent part on Chuck, when he was on Chuck for a bit, a year or so ago. But there's a lot of stunt casting on that show. Anyway, he had his evil plan, which is basically to take over Universal Studios and turn it into Luthor versus Studios. Excuse me. I need some light so I can read my damn notes, which I wrote months ago. Months and months ago, when I first started doing these Sweet 16 videos, and some of it's in my sort of personal, you know how twins have their own language. Well, when I write notes to myself, sometimes I use my own language, which only the two of us, me and me, understand. But sometimes I forget what I said, and then I don't remember what it was. Anyway, anyway, Luthor Studios, and bloody hell, what the hell did I write here? Oh yeah, and he's going to take over Luthorversal and destroy the attractions which had meant so much to everybody, and put in his own new freaky attractions. Yeah, like the Simpsons ride. No, that hadn't happened yet. Luthor did it! That's what happened! Now we know why Despicable Me is coming in. It's Luthor! He finally succeeded at last! Now, here's what 20,000 Leagues Under Star Jones was one. She used to be fat. Britney Spears' Baby Buggy Bumpers. That was one. There was another one was... bloody hell. Oh yeah. My favorite. I wrote it down because I can't memorize it very well. It's Mel Gibson in Honey. Excuse me, I have to read this. Honey, I drank a fifth, drove, got arrested, blamed the Jews, urinated in a jail cell, ruined my career in 4D. Sorry about that. I need to write in larger print nowadays, apparently. Obviously getting middle-aged. I need Captain Kirk reading glasses. So, all this was the stuff that Luthor was going to do at Bill and Ted. And at least I have my pizza. No, I do not have the munchies. I wasn't doing anything before I did the video. I promise. Not my thing. Okay, now. So, that's his plan. And his plan to destroy those studios. See, remember in Superman how that he twisted the Fortress of Solitude's crystals into evil black crystals that grew and destroyed things? It was sort of like that. See, the evil crystals had taken the form of Universal as these mysterious white spheres. You know, the good. That's right. Those were Luthor's balls! And they were going to destroy Universal Studios. Okay. With his balls. Yes. So, as I mentioned before, they had to stop him with the help of many good guys. But what happened is, when they first tried to call, they mentioned the X-Men and Luthor, whom they kept mistaking for Dr. Evil, who had been a perennial villain on the show, and because they're both bald, and he kept getting pissed off when they mistook him for Dr. Evil. He used a device. It says X-Men. How about X-Men? That is, EX-Men. That is, you used to be a man, now you're an X-Man. Because you're not a man anymore. Because you're a woman. That's right. What he did was he used this device to turn Bill and Ted into chicks. All of a sudden, Bill and Ted are two bodacious babes. And you understand what a randy, horny teenager who suddenly finds himself transformed into a bodacious babe will do first. Play with his own boobies. Yes, basically that's what it was. Touching themselves and, oh man, singing about, imagine the female Ted going on about, my lumps, my lovely lady. Anyway, enough of that. So, that Captain Jack Sparrow and Elizabeth came in. The gay Superman, and the idea is that it was all over AICN and other internet spots that somehow the new costume for Superman Returns was gay. I thought that was just a cheap shot at the director, who happened to be a gay man. I mean, no one said that the X-Men movies were gay, but for some reason they used the fact that he was an openly gay man, the director of the film, to suggest that somehow he was implying Superman was gay, even though this time he actually had sex with Lois and fathered a child. Oh, did I spoil the movie for you? It was frickin' 5 years ago. Get over it. Anyway, also, if you're going to make his costume gay, why make it dark, like brick red, maroon, brown colored cape, and turn all the red, instead of bright red and blue, you turn the blue sort of a dark indigo and turn the red into like maroon brown almost? That's gay? No, it's boring. That isn't. It's like trying to go the opposite direction because you're afraid you're going to be called gay. It's like, I hate that. When people look for gay shit when it's not there just because the guy in charge is gay. It's like when Doctor Who was taking Russell T Davies. Oh, he's turning him gay. Yeah, he just made the Doctor, for the first time in history, a regular bloke who wears regular clothes. Remember Christopher Eccleston wore a leather jacket and just a black t-shirt? Whatever. He didn't have any of that frilly, fancy dress outfits he used to wear back in the 80s, and all the big hair, and hanging out with all kinds of chicks, and he never, ever, ever looked like he was interested in having sex with them. I mean, if he wasn't gay then, now he is, because Russell T Davies is openly gay. Right, the first time you got a doctor who's just a regular bloke he can sit in a pub and talk football with, and now all of a sudden it's like I'm sorry, I went on a tangent, but I have a real problem with people who do that kind of shit, because it's bollocks. It is. I mean, if you're going to do that, then all of horror is gay, because it was created by gay people to begin with. That's right. Go back to Lake Geneva, the Lord Byron, and John Polidori, and the fact he was sleeping with Percy Bysshe Shelley and everybody at the party, male, female, otherwise. And go back to the unrequited love affair between Bram Stoker and the actor he was managing. You go back to James Whale and almost all the major creators of horror, and for years. There are so many influential people in the genre. If you're going to do that, then the whole frickin' genre from beginning to end. So, give it up. Okay, that's my anti-homophobia rant. Let's go back to Bill and Ted. I mean, what's queer about Bill and Ted? Just because they're men and women's bodies. Anyway, take that however way you want to. So they're enjoying themselves. They got tits now, and they're having a hell of a good time, and making jokes about Luthor's balls when they keep mistaking him for Dr. Evil. And we've got all kinds of things. Anyway, the gay Superman is much more gayer than he was in the movie because he was happy and jumping around. Selena from Underworld, G-Girl, and The Lady in the Water. Who? Exactly. No one saw those movies. Snakes on a Plane joke, running gag with Samuel L. Jackson. He kept running out with, it was snakes, and then it was like squirrels, and then it was, I forget, but some new creature was on the plane every time. Bleeping out the word motherfucker. Nacho Libre, Jack Blackton, Mexican wrestling. It was a Ricky Bobby gag where he was on fire and called him for baby Jesus. Well, he wasn't actually on fire, but the whole Ricky Bobby gag. And of course, David Hasselhoff as Michael Knight of Knight Rider with Kit, except when it comes out, he's wearing the bathing suit from Baywatch, and he goes to fight the villains. He's like, I'll beat them. Nobody beats Hoff. And of course, Bill and Ted go, we do. And villains included Magneto, who had his magnetic powers with the help of CGI Man, who was all dressed in green, so he was a CGI screen. He wouldn't show up on the screen because he's CGI, right? And he's moving him around, the CGI, and the weird albino monk Silas from Da Vinci Code. David Jones, Cthulhu, Squiddly Diddly from the Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah, I'm Juggernaut, bitch. All of that, villains, good guys. Tom Cruise jokes with Katie Holmes, as The Omen, and I'm running out of time again. So I have to go to part 11 to continue the Bill and Ted. And maybe I'll finish my pizza before then.